All right. In Unplugged, last time we read, Jet was very upset with Grace. Grace was narrating, and Jet tried to tell them what? Lydia.
What?
Lydia.
The ivory is a fake, and she's been taking people's money.
That ivory is a con. Yep.
Yeah, and hypnotizing people, and she has a lot more money than what people think.
She's rich.
Those are mine. All right, Jet Baranoff. People are ostriches, Vlad always says. When they don't like the world around them, they bury their heads in the sand so they don't have to do anything about it. Who's Vlad?
Isn't his dad?
Jed's dad.
Why does he call him that? Vlad.
Because that's his name.
Why does Jet call him Vlad? Oh, because that's his
Because Vlad is his name, and he doesn't respect his father enough to call him dad. Or his dad doesn't want him to. I mean, there are parents that tell their kids to call him by their first name. So, my father has never met Grace or Tyrell, but he's got the two of them pegged. I kind of forgive Tyrell. Seeing his father fall apart like that has to be a nasty shock. But what's Grace's excuse? She's such a cheerleader for this wellness freak show that anything against the place has to be a rotten lie. To her, meditation is the greatest thing since sliced bread. She'll never accept the fact that Ivory is using it to brainwash customers into writing big fat checks to the Friends of the Oasis. Most important, what is the Friends of the Oasis? That's the big question. Is it a real charity? If so, then it's definitely different from the Wellness Center, which is an actual registered business that charges its customers for the privilege of coming here to be starved to death and bored stiff. But people give to charity out of the goodness of their hearts. They don't have to be brainwashed into doing it. Charity or no, something smells. Ivory is either a crook or a psycho, probably a little bit of both. And what about Nimbus? He's the big tofu around here. Is he in on this? Or is he just the doofus who's too clueless to see what his number two is doing right under his nose? Only one way to find out. I'm going to pay a visit to the cottage of Magnus Fellini. I don't know. It's common knowledge. The one time you can be sure Nimbus isn't going to be home is when he's out leading Awakening, making half-asleep kids do jumping jacks. That's where I tell Matt I'm going when I head out first thing in the morning with my trusty lock-picking paper clips. Like Ivory, Nimbus lives in a regular cottage, number 6. He doesn't even have a special sign or symbol on his door. That's how modest he is. Although the welcome mat says, "Be whole." What does that even mean anymore? Maybe give your whole life savings to Friends of the Oasis? As I'm breaking in, the first thing I notice is I don't have to. The door isn't locked. I step inside ready for anything. If Ivory had a cell phone and evening gowns, this place could be decked out like a gangster's penthouse with racks of cash, gold bricks stacked everywhere, and a couple of Tommy guns in the umbrella stand. I don't see that. Instead, I see the same modest carpeting and furniture that's in all the cottages. Oh yeah, I see one more thing. Sitting at the kitchen table eating a bowl of muesli and drinking juice is Brooklyn Feldman.
Yes, called it.
I'm so caught off guard that my first thought is, what a coincidence, we both broke in at the same time. But who breaks into a cottage just to have breakfast? Goldilocks, maybe. Nobody else. We stare at each other in shock for what seems like forever. Finally, she speaks. Okay, so now you know. Honestly, I don't know anything, so I keep my mouth shut, hoping she'll explain. How'd you figure it out? She asks. I keep bluffing. It's kind of obvious. She shrugs. After all these years, you're the only one who's ever learned the truth. And that's when it hits me. She's barefoot, wearing shorts, and a tank top she probably slept in. She lives here. The way people admire Magnus is almost too much, she goes on. Like he's a guru or a wizard or something. Like that. I thought it would be weird if I got around that he's my dad. Her dad? Nimbus is her father?
Wait, I thought Dad was smart. How smart is he actually?
I'm not sure why I'm so shocked. Everybody's father has to be someone. Look who mine is. Your name is Feldman, not Fellini, I blurt. A smile tugs at the corner of her mouth. So is his. He's Magnus Feldman? Try Marvin, she tells me. But Marvin Feldman doesn't sound like a name of a guy you'd follow to a remote wellness center where you kiss the world goodbye and devote yourself to health, exercise, and meditation. The name change was my mom's idea. She's here too? Just how many secrets does this family have? Brooklyn shakes her head sadly. She couldn't handle the lifestyle. She married a stockbroker when he turned into a pathfinder. And then he turned into a pathfinder. She couldn't hack it. That's why I come to the Oasis every summer. It's not vacation. It's joint custody. I almost relate to that. My folks aren't divorced, but my mom is crisscrossing the globe for Orthodontists Without Borders 3/4 of the time. And sure, she does it because she loves helping people, but I'll bet some of the motivation isn't totally different from Brooklyn's mom. It's probably even tougher being Mrs. Vladimir Baronoff than being Mrs. Nimbus Fellini, even if the food's better. I'm astonished, but I probably shouldn't be. Brooklyn always knew things about the Oasis that she had no business knowing, like where the boat was docked and where to find the key for it and the shed where we kept needles. Brooklyn was the one who first showed it to Grace. There had to have been at least a dozen times where she said something that made me pull up and think, how would a normal guest get a piece of info like that? Now I have my answer. She's not a normal guest. Her father owns the place. More than that, he's Captain Hole, the wellness superhero who dreamed up this entire thing. Why'd you lie to us? I demand. She flushes a little, but doesn't back down. I didn't lie. I never said Magnus wasn't my father. I never said my father was somebody else. I just avoided the subject. That's baloney and you know it, I accuse her. 5 minutes doesn't go by in this place before your dad's name comes up. I complain about him. Grace never shuts out about how great he is. When we were hiding needles and taking the boat to Hedge Apple, whose rules did we talk about breaking? You had a million opportunities to fess up, a million chances to say funny coincidence about that guy Nimbus, but you didn't. Why? Are you spying for him? I feel my eyes narrowing. Did you tell Ivory about the candy bars? She's appalled. Never. I loved hanging out with you guys and looking after needles, and the Hedge Apple trips were great, including the food. This has been my best summer ever. That didn't stop you from dropping us like a hot potato the minute Needles was out of the picture, I charge. I dropped you? You dropped me. You got mad, Grace got defensive, Tyrell got weird. What was I supposed to do? I was always the outsider of the group. She leaps up from her chair and faces me. If I had told Dad about Needles, don't you think the Pathfinders would have shut us down? Or if I ratted you out about Hedge Apple, don't you think the launch would have been moved someplace you couldn't find it? Maybe all that was going to happen, I counter, but you were biding your time, piling up the evidence. She stares at me. This is a wellness center, not a cop show. I admit I covered up who my dad is. I wanted to be treated like everybody else. And you know what? I was right. Look how you're treating me now that you know. I'm speechless, but only because my head is spinning. The nerve of this girl lying to us and then making it seem like it's all our fault for getting mad at her when we find her out. Worse, this ruins all my plans. How can I search the cottage with her standing here glaring at me? Which means I have no way of finding out if Nimbus is in on Ivory's scam. And I don't dare tell Brooklyn what I know because for sure she would run straight to her father. I'm dead in the water. I backpedal out of the cottage. Forget you ever knew me, she says. My pleasure, and slams the door in my face. Grace once told me that in the original plan for the Oasis, there were no doors at all. Before you can be whole, Nimbus's philosophy went, you first have to be open. I consider shouting that at Brooklyn, but as Nimbus's kid, I'm sure she already knows.
Wait, they did